Hello Flosstube, my name's Natalia and this is my channel, OfficialMermaidsCove. This is going to be a quick video today. I've been talking about how I was going to record me dyeing some fabric, and you're going to get a one-off in this video. This isn't how I typically dye my fabric, or how I always choose to dye my fabric, but I recently had some family members over and they were kind enough to help me do some spring cleaning at my house. And accidentally threw away all of my fabric dyeing supplies. So I run over to Hobby Lobby real quick and grab some purple dye because I want to dye this piece of linen for my Sweet Wing Studio chart Mercy and Grace that I'm going to be starting probably next month. And I have some salt here, and I have an electric water heater that is heating up some water for me right now. So, but before I start with anything, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fabric over to the sink and rinse it and get it nice and wet. So I'll do that real quick and I'll be right back. Okay, so while I was doing that, my water actually finished heating too. So here's my piece of linen. Sometimes you'll find with some fabrics, because this did happen with this one, the water kept just wanting to run off and not really absorb into the fibers. So I actually used a little bit of dish soap to help make sure that it got completely soaked instead of just deflecting the water. So that's something that you can try if you find that happens with your fabric. So I'm kind of deciding what I want to do here, because I guess I will go ahead and crumple this up. Typically you want to do this if you want modeling in your fabric, which I'm not going to do a low water immersion dye on this. I'm actually going to completely have it submerged because I kind of don't want this to have a lot of modeling. I want it to be a solid color, but just for the container I'm using, since I don't have my other containers. Or the other thing you could have done if you just wanted like a solid color on your fabric is you could use, like, I have a stainless steel sink, but it's currently a little fold up with dishes right now. You could stop up your sink and use the bottom of your sink. I've done that before. But what I'm going to do is I just crumple it up a little bit. If it has a little slight modeling, that's okay. But I want maybe most of the center to be the same color. The other thing I'm going to do is grab some napkins. And I forgot one more thing. I'll be right back. So I'm going to take this out real quick. We'll set it off to the side here. And I'm going to put some salt at the bottom of this. Then I'm going to get my hot water and pour it until maybe this is like halfway filled. I don't know if you can see that, but there's like steam coming off of this. It's very, very hot. Let other people in your house know you're doing this, so they don't just run across a really hot container of liquid and then topple it over. There's potential for injury. Please be careful. Okay, so I have this. I got this off Amazon, and it wasn't with my other stuff, so it didn't get tossed. This is just some droppers, plastic droppers. So I pulled out one. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our liquid rip dye. If you want to use the powder dye, that's good as well. You're using really hot water, so the powder should dissolve, but make sure you give it a good stir and make sure it dissolves completely. If you're using powder dyes, you could run into dye spots from the powder not dissolving completely. So what I've seen other people do, especially Yanni Stitcher, and I'll tag her down below if you want to go check out her. She has a lot of fabric dyeing tutorials. She'll mix up her dye in a separate container, and then she'll filter it through a napkin to catch all the like stuff that's still powder, and that way that doesn't end up on your fabric and leave dye spots. But for the liquid dye, I've heard, give or take, that this is a more concentrated form, so you can decide whether you want to get the powder or not. I know the powder is good for like ice dyeing and other things, and depending on if you're not just using RIP powder, but like another more professional dye, could be different. But I'm going to use this for now. It's important before you use these is you shake them up really good. It is very concentrated, and some of that kind of sun will settle to the bottom. or separate. So shake, shake, shake. I'm going to open it, and it's a brand new container. So I'm gonna need to take the top off. Okay. I don't want to dye this a very deep purple. I want it to be light. So I'm not gonna add a lot of dye initially. This actually has measurements on the side, so I can actually give you exact. I'd never really do exact. I don't really repeat any of these things. I kind of eyeball it, but for those of you who need exact measurements, this is like 4 millimeters of dye. I'm gonna add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 drops. Okay. I'm just gonna use my dropper and just stir that in. And that will also help stir in the salt that I put in there. And we have some purple dye liquid now. I'm just rinsing my dropper out with some water and getting the excess dye off the inside of this. Okay, so now we have our white napkins, and those are gonna come in handy because now I can take a little bit of this, or you can just dip the corner. I could just do that too. I don't need to be. If I just dip the corner of this in the dye, it'll usually give you an idea for like what kind of color you get. I am not getting barely any purple from that. So let's add some more dye. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those 10 drops didn't even get me to 1 millimeter, so let me do this. Okay, so that's about maybe 1.5 milliliters of dye, according to my dropper. So I added not just double, maybe like 3 times. So I added double what I did the first time. Actually, maybe more than that, to be honest. The first time it was like maybe 1/3 of a milliliter. And then I added an additional milliliter. So 1 1/3. If that makes any sense. Okay, so definitely darker now. And this is a light purple. It's not like the standard purple. They do have a purple dye, but I was going more for a lighter purple. So now we're going to dip the end of our napkin in it now. And I am getting a light purple color now. You see here, if I like fold it over, that was like barely purple. It is a little tinted purple. You can barely see it on the camera, but it is. And then I added more, and then we're getting more of a purple color here. This is still the color when it's wet. The colors when they are wet will appear deeper than when they dry. So just be aware of that. I'm okay with it just being slightly purple, and this is a good shade for me. So I feel like I'm ready to add my fabric now. So remember, this water is still very hot. Be careful. And I'm going to dip that in there. I'll use my dropper to just push it in under the water. Okay. Put my cap back on my dye. And I'm gonna leave that. A lot of the times when I dye stuff, I'll leave it overnight because I usually go for deep colors. This one, I don't need it to be super deep, but also, again, this is like a fairly light purple. So I guess you'll see when I come back, whether I left it overnight or I just waited. Let's see. It is, what time is it? It is 6:09 as of right this moment. So I will be back and I'll let you know the time then and how much time has passed before I take this out, rinse it out, and show you what the color is. And the good thing about this is I'm erring on the side of caution to make it light. If I wanted a deeper color, I just put it in with more dye and let it sit longer and it'll deepen up. So take your time. I've already cut this to size and this is definitely the fabric that I want to use. But if you have more fabric to experiment with, don't put too much pressure on yourself, you know, give yourself room for error if you're just testing this out. Okay, I will be back after, we'll see how many hours. Bye. Okay, I'm back. It's been approximately an hour. It's like 7:02 now. So I'm going to go ahead and take this over to the sink, remove the fabric, rinse it a bit, and see what the color is. So I'll bring you right back after I do that. Okay, so this is what the fabric turns out. I actually tried to rinse it a bit, and maybe it's because I didn't go overboard with the dye, or this is linen, and linen tends to hold dye very well, but I didn't really get a lot of runoff from the dye. There is a bit of modeling here, which is okay. It seems very purpley. So what I'm going to try to do is take it over to my ironing board and iron out the moisture and see what it looks like. And I'll bring you back after I finish that. So this is what we have now. Different sides look different. This one has more spotting on it, and then when I flip it over, it looks different on this side. Definitely a deeper purple than what I was going for. And when I'm looking at my colors, floss, some of those might end up blending in. Let me see if I put the purples against there. Yeah, like it's very close to this purple. Okay, so this was a little too dark, even though I left it only for an hour. This is a linen. They do hold on to dyes. From what I hear from other people, more than a cotton would necessarily. I've dyed cotton Aida with hyacinth before, and it turns out a very, very light purple. So I have other linens. I have another one here. I don't know if I want to try dyeing this whole thing. I mean, I don't have a lot of light purples, so if I could just get the whole thing, maybe. So this time, I'm going to go with this, and I'm going to... I still have the container with my dye in it. I haven't gotten rid of it. It has cooled down considerably, so it's not as hot. What I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to dump maybe half of this out, or a third of this out, replace it with hot water, and then place the fabric in here for 30 minutes. It's a bigger piece of fabric. Okay, I still do have some bigger ones of these containers. Like I have a lasagna sized one. So we are going to take this, actually just leave it right here. I'm going to go ahead and just dye it in the clear cover. But I'll keep the aluminum underneath because this is kind of flimsy. And I'm going to dump this whole thing into here. I'm gonna go wet my fabric, and I'll be right back. I am back. I wouldn't typically recommend just sticking your hands in a vat of dye. It's recommended to wear gloves, but just for now I'm gonna do this. One again. I'm wondering if I should just... Never tried this before, so we're just gonna experiment. Okay, maybe don't flatten it. Rolled it up. And I'm going to wait until my water finishes heating up, and then we'll add water to cover this entirely. I feel like I'm rotisserieing this fabric. It's already got some like tint to it. Okay. Water is heated up. And I think I'll need a bit more. Reminder, I'm using food containers, disposable food containers for this, but do not put food in these after you finish with these. If you're going to use these for dyeing, set these aside only for dyeing, mark them somehow so that they don't accidentally get used for cooking, because that's not good. It could leach stuff into your food if you try cooking these afterwards. Big no-no, don't do that, please. I'm still waiting on the other batch of water to finish, but we already have like a tint to this. I'm wondering if I should add a little bit more dye or maybe leave it like this. I think I'll do maybe like half a milliliter. So on my dropper, that's like just the tip basically. I end up using the extra water. I didn't check the time when I put this in, but I know I took the other one out around 7:02. Currently 7:24. So maybe we've had it in there for 15 minutes? 10 minutes? I think. That is a light purple. I'm going to take this out and iron it and see how it looks dry. Okay, this is what we have. Let me move this out of the way. So I think I have what I want. It's very lightly purple. Maybe not the same shade as here, but when I put my colors against it, those are going to stand out. Especially those purples that I was concerned about. Yep. Perfect. Okay. I think we're good. So this one was a lot less time. So there you go. Ended up needing some extra spare fabric. Again, like, my default is to leave it in there for longer because I actually prefer, majority of the time, to have deeper colors. But for this specific project, I do want it to be lighter. And you can just, I mean, look at that. That's a significant difference. So an hour, 15, 20 minutes, and less dye. So dilute your dye and don't let it sit for as long. But yeah, hopefully that gave you some insight into what I'm looking at when I'm dyeing. A lot of the times when I'm dyeing, I'm just dyeing random colors. I'm not necessarily always dyeing for a specific project. The projects that I've dyed in the past, again, like I've said, have been deeper colors. So I haven't had any qualms with leaving it overnight or as long as possible in some really, really hot water to allow the colors to really soak in and saturate that fabric. But if you want lighter colors, you definitely don't need to leave it in for as long. Okay, thank you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it was helpful. I know I've been promising a fabric dyeing video for like ever. I finally have a tripod that will help me record over my table without too much fuss. So hopefully I can do some future ones. I'm gonna have to buy some more dye. Maybe collect some more supplies together. But thankfully, you know, this stuff I usually use. I think other was like glass jars we used over time from cooking and a lot of inexpensive stuff, and I could understand why maybe somebody thought it was trash. But I will definitely have to buy more different color dyes for this. So I definitely have a pretty big stash of colored fabrics at this point, so it's going to be used for specific projects. I know I'm going to be dyeing a piece if they do the Dark Queen of the Sky. I think that's the next one for Autumn Lane Citry for the Dark Queen series. They hinted that that's supposed to be coming out this summer, so, or end of this summer. I usually like to dye my own fabrics for those, but we will see. It just depends on what fabric they suggest. So maybe I'll take you along for that. That's about the next foreseeable future I see myself dyeing. I have a pretty large collection otherwise. But if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer them to my best of my ability. And hopefully this was entertaining, interesting for you. I got to do two different fabrics, two different results. You notice when I was doing the second one, I was trying to like roll it, trying to like not have as many folds in the fabric, and then I started getting concerned that if I had it rolled up, would the folds in the roll, when it flattened, show up in the fabric, and I'm not seeing that here. But I also didn't leave it for a long time, and I was constantly like agitating it and moving it around so the dye could touch all parts of it. Versus this one, you saw how I kind of crumbled it, and I did get some variation in how the dye touched this one. And then some parts did end up raising, right? Because I walked away from it. So that could also be what contributed to this. Okay. Until next time, happy stitching. Bye.